Christmas night arrived quietly in the small town of Red Willow, wrapped in snow and silence. The old railway depot stood at the edge of town like a forgotten memory, its wooden benches cracked, its windows fogged with frost. Most people were home by warm fireplaces, laughing over dinner, unwrapping gifts. But inside the depot, beneath a flickering yellow light, a young woman curled herself tighter into a thin wool coat that wasn't nearly enough to keep the cold away. Her name was Clara Whitmore, and she was 24 years old. Clara had never imagined that her first Christmas as a schoolteacher would end like this, alone, abandoned, and shivering on a depot bench with her suitcase clutched like a lifeline. She had arrived in Red Willow 3 months earlier, fresh from teachers' college, full of hope. The town's tiny schoolhouse needed a teacher desperately, and Clara needed the job. She taught 12 children of different ages in one room, patched the torn textbooks herself, and stayed late to help struggling students. She believed kindness could change lives, but kindness hadn't saved her tonight. The last bus out of town had left without her. She swallowed hard, blinking back tears that froze on her lashes. The bus driver had shrugged apologetically when she ran toward it, her boots slipping on ice. "Sorry, miss, schedule changed. Holiday run only stops in Cedar Ridge." Cedar Ridge was 30 miles away. There was no money for a taxi, no family nearby. Her parents had passed years earlier, and the one relative she had lived states away. Clara had planned to visit an old college friend for Christmas. Planned being the key word. Now she sat alone. She tried to sleep, but the cold bit through her coat and into her bones. She pressed her hands together and breathed into them, whispering a small prayer she hadn't said in years. "Just let me make it through the night." Miles away, Ethan Cole tightened his grip on the reins as his horse plodded steadily through the snow-covered road toward town. Ethan was a rancher, 38 years old, broad-shouldered and quiet, with weathered hands and eyes that had seen too much loss. He lived alone on his ranch outside Red Willow, except for his horses and a loyal old dog named Boone. He hadn't planned to go into town that night, but one of his hired hands had fallen sick, and Ethan had promised to drop off medicine at the doctor's house. Now, as he passed the darkened depot, something made him slow his horse. A shape too small, too still. Ethan frowned and dismounted, boots crunching against the snow. The depot should have been empty. His breath fogged the air as he stepped closer, heart tightening. Then he saw her. A young woman curled on the bench, cheeks pale, lips slightly blue, clutching a worn suitcase. She looked like she'd fallen asleep out of sheer exhaustion. "Miss," Ethan said softly. No response. Concern shot through him. He removed his coat and draped it over her shoulders before gently touching her arm. "Miss, wake up." Clara stirred, startled, eyes flying open. For a moment, panic flashed across her face. She scrambled upright, pulling the coat tighter around herself. I'm sorry," she stammered. "I didn't mean to. You don't need to apologize." Ethan interrupted gently. "It's freezing out here. What are you doing alone?" Her voice trembled. "I missed the bus." That single sentence held everything: fear, disappointment, and shame. Ethan glanced around the empty depot, then back at her. On Christmas night, she nodded. He didn't ask more. He'd learned long ago that sometimes silence was kinder. "You can't stay here," he said firmly but kindly. "You'll freeze." Clara hesitated. Every warning she'd ever been taught echoed in her mind. Don't trust strangers, especially not at night. But when she looked at Ethan, she didn't see danger. She saw concern. And loneliness that mirrored her own. "I'm Ethan," he added. "I have a ranch a few miles out. There's a warm house, food, and a guest room." She swallowed. "I'm Clara." A long pause hung between them, heavy as the snow. Finally, she nodded. "Okay." The ranch house glowed warmly against the dark sky, a welcome sight after the bitter cold. Ethan helped Clara down from the horse and ushered her inside. Heat wrapped around her instantly, and she nearly cried from relief. "You can sit by the fire," Ethan said. "I'll make some soup." She sat, hands trembling as warmth slowly returned. The house was modest but clean, decorated simply. A small Christmas tree stood in the corner, unadorned except for a single string of lights. "You're alone?" Clara asked quietly. Ethan nodded. "Been that way a while." He didn't explain further, and she didn't ask. They ate in comfortable silence. The soup tasted better than anything Clara could remember. Afterward, Ethan handed her a folded blanket. "Guest rooms down the hall." She hesitated. "Thank you. I don't know how to get some rest." He said gently, "That's thanks enough." That night, Clara slept deeply for the first time in weeks. Morning light filtered through the window, soft and pale. Clara woke slowly, confused for a moment before memories came rushing back. She sat up, heart pounding, then relaxed as warmth surrounded her. She dressed quickly and stepped into the kitchen, where Ethan stood pouring coffee. "Merry Christmas," he said, a hint of a smile touching his lips. "Merry Christmas," she replied. They shared breakfast, and Clara offered to help clean. Over time, she told him her story, how teaching had been her dream, how Red Willow's children had become her family, how lonely the holidays felt without anyone waiting for her. Ethan listened quietly. "My wife loved Christmas," he said finally. "She passed 5 years ago. Since then, it's just another day." "I'm sorry," Clara whispered. He nodded. "I don't talk about her much." They spent the day together, feeding the horses, walking through the snow, sharing stories by the fire. Something gentle grew between them, unspoken but undeniable. When evening came, Ethan hitched the wagon. "I'll take you back to town tomorrow," he said. "Roads should be clear." Clara nodded, a strange ache forming in her chest. Over the next weeks, Ethan found himself thinking about Clara more than he expected. She returned to teaching, but often stopped by the ranch on weekends, sometimes with baked bread, sometimes just to talk. The children adored her, the town respected her, and Ethan found himself smiling again, but life was rarely so simple. One afternoon, Clara arrived at the ranch pale and shaken. "The school board," she said softly. "They're closing the school." Ethan's jaw tightened. "When? End of term, I'll have to leave." The words hung heavy between them. "Where will you go?" he asked. "I don't know." That night, Ethan sat alone, staring at the fire. He had spent years convincing himself he didn't need anyone. But the thought of Clara leaving felt like losing something he hadn't realized he'd found. On the last day of school, the children hugged Clara tightly, tears streaking their faces. She walked back to the depot, suitcase in hand, just like Christmas night, but this time she wasn't alone. Ethan waited, hat in hand. "You don't have to go," he said quietly. She looked at him, eyes shining. "Ethan, I'm not good with words," he continued, "but you belong here, and I think I do too, with you." Tears spilled freely now. She set her suitcase down. "I was hoping you'd say that." Snow began to fall again, soft and gentle. Ethan took her hand, and for the first time in years, the depot didn't feel cold or abandoned. It felt like the beginning of something new, because sometimes the darkest nights lead us to the warmest homes. And sometimes being abandoned is what finally brings us where we belong.